Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining me here for a little bit of a combo show in the middle of the week, 1 week away from Christmas, that is my good buddy, pal, and friend of one, Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, are you in the holiday mood yet?
No, but I'm never in the holiday mood. What I am right now is in a conundrum, right? I'm in a conundrum because I really like the pattern, the style, the presentation of this hat, but I really hate this big giant hat part up here. And this used to be a flat brim, which I also hate. It's not my style. So I'm torn and probably will not keep this hat on for the entire show, but I really like this part. I just hate everything else about this hat.
Was it a gift? Is it new? Have you had it for a while? What's the story?
No, it's new, and I foolishly tried to go outside of my comfort zone, and now I regret it.
We were just in, you know what, Brian and I had this, maybe this is a sidebar for like the off season. I don't want to get into it because our scheduling here, we have a short week. We didn't want to do 2 shows within like a day of one another. So apologies. We weren't ducking the Eagles post-game talk because there's not a lot to talk about with that one to begin with. So we decided to table that, come to you, all of you in the middle of the week, give you the Ravens pregame. We'll be back after the Ravens game with another combo show because we're going to have to cover the Ravens and then jump right into a Christmas Day game coverage for the Kansas City Chiefs, and then hopefully come back to everyone after that one as well. So just a little bit of programming notes. Just a very busy and tight schedule. And, you know, we were talking caps, as you know, I wear a cap all the time. I'm bald. I'm not showing my head. It's a little bit of like my shtick, my gimmick, my character here on the Steel City Underground podcast. I'm like LL Cool Joe. He always wears a hat, by the way. So I gotta stop doing that. But you know what? I still got the froggy throat. It's almost gone, but I swear, man, this weather. And I was checking the forecast. I got to knock on wood and don't jinx it. But Christmas Day, it better not freaking rain. I'm cool with snow, man. It could go down to 30 degrees and snow. Don't be 40 degrees and rain. That'll be miserable. So,
Agreed.
Yeah. But Brian, I wanted to get your raw reaction.
I feel better now.
I want to get, yeah, this is probably, if it hasn't already hit the X or the Twitter, and this was a press release this morning from the NFL. There is a commemorative patch that's going to be worn on Christmas Day by the teams that are competing. That would be, you know, the Chiefs, the Steelers. Well, it's called a festive patch, not a commemorative patch. It's the first ever NFL holiday remix to feature the Baltimore Ravens, Houston Texans, Kansas City Chiefs, and Pittsburgh Steelers. And they're going to be playing on Saturday, December 21st and Christmas Day. All 4 teams to wear holiday-inspired patch for both games. And it literally looks like clip art.
Well, that's crap.
Dude, it's like somebody went searching on Google Images and found candy canes and just put it behind the NFL logo. It is literally...
That's awful.
Oh, my goodness. I was expecting to see something kind of cool. Usually, you know, all joking aside, the NFL, we were just talking about this, like with how Nike, and they just extended that deal, and how, like, you've got the coaches, you've got everybody like always wearing like the newest gear on the sidelines. Everything is like really sharp. They even have logos for like the kickoff week and Thanksgiving week and the John Madden thing, which looks really cool. And then they like, this is straight out of the Maths with Joe or Brian department of like graphic design. You know, one of those nailed it memes.
It's terrible. And the candy canes don't even look like good. Like the stripes are bad. No, it's all horrible. It's just an awful.
Those are the kind of candy canes you just pitch. You don't even want to hold on to them. I actually didn't realize they were going to wear these for both games until I didn't read this full release. I was like a squirrel in my attention jumping around, which happens frequently. I was like, ooh, Ooh, logo, patch. Like, I get excited about these things, like the Franco Harris, like, patch, like the one Super Bowl commemorative patch. There's too many of them to keep up with. I wish they would actually, maybe they do. I have never seen them actually for sale unless you get them bootlegged. The Dan Rooney patch and stuff like that. That stuff's like all cool to me. I like the Man of the Year patch, like Russell Wilson and Cam Hayward have, and et cetera, et
Yeah, I
cetera.
kind of want to get a 97 with that on it, but I don't know if I have to do it bootleg because I don't think they sell them.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I could find the patch, actually just the patch instead of the jersey with it already
That's
on
too
it.
much effort.
So
It's too much
yeah,
effort. I'm not putting the patch on
yeah,
myself.
I know, but I don't want it. Yeah, and then when it's like $150 jersey, you don't want to make a mistake. What if it like moves a little bit and then you have it on sideways?
I'm not
See,
doing
folks,
it.
this
Not
is the
doing it.
this is the bonus content you were waiting for, folks. Eagles game, man.
You know why? It's because I don't really want to talk about this.
No, I don't either. But unfortunately we must, and it's kind of good that we do because we probably would have been talking more about the upcoming game with the Ravens anyways, which is, the Steelers have got to have this one now. They're 10-4 with the Ravens having won. Now, like, it was a big surprise. We knew this was probably going to be the territory they ended up in, but the Ravens win against the New York Giants. They're 9-5. Obviously, if they beat the Steelers, they both have the same record, and then it comes down to tiebreakers, and then the Steelers are going to have to outlast the rest of their schedule, which constitutes the Kansas City Chiefs on a short week, and then the Cincinnati Bengals. At least they get to play both of those games at home. The Baltimore Ravens, you know what? I mean, it's not a gimme for them either. They still have to play Pittsburgh at home, and then they're going to move
on the road.
Yeah, then they got Houston on the road, and then the Cleveland Browns at home. Browns.
Well, that's all over now. Browns have kept packed it in after getting wiped by Kansas City. They packed it in.
6 turnovers. Stefanski wasn't happy. I don't know if you caught the new Hard Knocks, but
well, I haven't watched the new Hard Knocks yet because I was so disillusioned with the last Hard Knocks. Plus, I don't really want to revisit the travesty that we're going to revisit here momentarily.
And you know what? It
on
wasn't
top of that,
all that bad. They didn't show the second.
They also benched Jameis now, so they're going to put Dorian in, and that's it. They're done. They're like, we're not even going to try.
Yeah, they're in the tankathon, trying to get one of those top picks, maybe they draft a QB. Well, they had the situation Atlanta has, where you pay all that money to Kirk Cousins or something. The same thing, because they're just as stuck to Deshaun Watson as Atlanta still is to paying Cousins. Cousins' situation looks almost like the Russell Wilson one, so maybe he bounces back somewhere else in just a bad fit. I don't know. And that's not a good situation for Penix, a rookie quarterback, to jump into right away either. I mean, you kind of want to see what you got before the season's over. But that's what happens. You've got, I see so many of these teams, they have so many gimmicks too. Like they change their uniforms all the time. They have different, like the Houston Texans have like 10 different jerseys or whatever. I'm like, what is going on with this? And it just drives me crazy. I like just being with the Steelers that, it's classic. They don't have to do all of this like tomfoolery to try and get fans interested in your poverty franchise. They just win football games for the most part. They just don't win them in Philadelphia. Which we knew, and we were trying to get optimistic about it. So
let me just tell you, the Najee. I know I'm jumping way ahead, but the Najee fumble is proof that the Philadelphia area is a curse on the Steelers. Next time they go there, we have to get like a voodoo doll made out of the city of Philadelphia and start sticking pins in the city of Philadelphia, because I don't know. There's some kind of weird mojo that happens to them when they go to Philly. And that Najee fumble that's like it. It was like somebody up in the stands had the Najee voodoo doll and went, and it's like, I thought up until that point, we still got a sort of a chance. We got a chance. We got an opportunity. And then we didn't have anything anymore.
Yeah, that was a big turning point in the game. You could also sense, Mike Tomlin saw this kind of going away, but who thought this was like a record thing? I mean, you get to halftime. It's the exact thing I was thinking. I'm like, this team, they're in this. At first it was like, oh man, they're going to get throttled, right? They punt 3 and outs to start the game. And it's like they generated 3 yards, 2 yards, and then had a -11. So they were in the negative. And then they had 4 plays for 7 yards. before the first quarter is over with. And they got the ball off of turnovers. Just, TJ Watt and these guys are just inhuman. Like when they get called like an alien or whatever, and they weren't able to get anything off of the one. And then immediately you had Cooper DeJean, get crushed. Mark Robinson just absolutely torpedoes him. And we haven't said Mark Robinson's name in a long time, but that's a good way.
No, we haven't.
Good way to pop up on the page. And then they're able to at least get a field goal out of this. And it's, 10-3. And then the Steelers get the ball back once again in the second quarter. And then they have another 3 and out, basically. Just 3 plays, 10 yards. And even the field goal drive was only 4 for 7. And they got penalized 15 yards for probably one of the more ridiculous things. I mean, the officiating didn't help. But it wasn't like the Steelers can just point at officiating and say, well, that's the reason they lost the game. So I want to preface that.
Oh, it definitely wasn't. Yeah.
But you'll see it on Hard Knocks, Brian. Tomlin goes, you didn't see the Philadelphia guy punch him? You see like the one side judge like speaking with Tomlin and giving like the rundown of the play. And it's like, okay, we have 2 fouls or two flags and one on whatever, like 80. And you're like, okay. And then another one on 19 and both of them on us. And that was like Tomlin's kind of reaction. And it was like, are you shitting me? Like, this is stupidity. And I was pretty hot over it. I mean, it was pretty obvious. You would have thought it was just the offsetting penalties, and it was just one of several setbacks that kind of changed the ebb and flow of what could have been in this game. That was Najee getting down, off a pass from Russell Wilson. That was more of what I think they need to do that didn't get done in this game. When you look at the way they attacked Philadelphia, in a way I think they could attack the Ravens, is find Warren, find Najee, get the running backs involved in this game. I think they only each had 1 target. Let me look at this once again. Yeah, 1 catch. Warren had 2 targets. So each had a catch, the one for 7 yards and the one for 3, penalty negating the one. And then Russ ends up getting incomplete for Mike Williams, just kind of tossed it away. And then the sack for a loss of 11. And they end up, that was when they punted and then ended up getting back. So then you had the penalty after the game that should have been down to the Eagles 4. And they also had a chance of getting a first down if they got down to the 1. Instead, you have a 2nd and 18 from the Philadelphia 19. He looks for Scotty Miller. And then he looks for Pat Freiermuth, doesn't get anything. Boswell kicks the field goal. 3-3. Philadelphia comes back, makes it look easy. 6 plays, 70 yards. It's tough. I'm like looking at the defense, and I can't figure out. You can't say they did an awesome or excellent or whatever job because of the way the game ends, but it seems like they definitely had their struggles trying to cover A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who both had their most catches and most yards, and each had a touchdown in this game. They had their most season highs in this game after the Eagles were primarily a run team. The Steelers were like, you know what? We're going to make this a focus. We're not going to let Saquon do anything. 3.4 average, 19 carries, 65 yards, but he still squeaked out for a big play, and it was like a lot of bad tackling too.
A lot of bad tackling, really a lot of bad tackling. Seems like that's also becoming a theme. But yeah, look, we knew the Eagles are a very good team. So let's not take anything away from the Eagles, right? They're a very dynamic team. They're a very hard team to defend against. And the reason is because even if you take one aspect of their offense away, they can kill you with the other aspect. So, the Steelers were heavily focused on Saquon, as they should have been, because he had been their offense, right? He had been the reason that they were winning. And the problem is, then you get A.J. Brown and Devontae Adams just killing you. As well as, they had some tight end plays. They had some other pass completions that were, problematic. It's hard to do both things, right? And I don't think that Joey was consistently on A.J. Brown during the beginning of the game. I think they played a lot of zone. I think they switched that up because A.J. kind of disappeared in the second half, and then Devontae Adams takes over, right? And it was somewhat...
Or Devontae Smith.
Or whatever his name is. Yeah, I don't know. Who cares? He's an Eagle. I'm just going to call him that other guy. How about that? Anyway, it is definitely just... it's a difficult thing to happen. And when the defense was on the field as much as they were, it becomes very, very difficult.
Yes, that's the biggest thing. They got like no rest. We're talking about all these 3 and
Exactly.
outs. They were on the field pretty much nonstop for the whole game. And that's like another deal with this, right? So the Steelers ran their fewest offensive plays in like over like a decade or something. Maybe some of the fewest in the NFL. I had the actual stats. I'm going to pull them up from Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. But when we look at it from a just the team standpoint, the Steelers only had 10 first downs in this game, one by penalty. The Eagles had 26 first downs, which is just insanity. Of course, the time of possession, which we'll get to, the Eagles almost had 40 minutes of time of possession. They were 8 seconds shy of that. They had the second most yards that any offense has had against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense this season, a total net of 401. They ran 77 offensive plays, which is just insanity. Just almost 80 plays. That's almost like if they would have had an overtime game, right? The Steelers only ran 41 offensive plays, which between that, their time of possession, and more, it just became apparent. I don't know. I think a lot of us felt we wanted to see this heavyweight kind of contest, see these two teams slug it out back and forth. I found the Dulac tweets here. The 11 plays that the Steelers ran after halftime, right, are the fewest by any NFL team. So this wasn't just a Steelers thing. This comes from the Elias Sports Bureau via Jerry Dulac on Twitter. The fewest by any NFL team since Seattle ran 10 plays in the second half. They lost in a game 41-7 to the New York Giants back in 2010. So I was pretty close to it being, a full decade's worth of just bad play there. And then Jerry had one more too, and I'm trying to see. The Steelers had finished with 163 yards, and it's their fewest they've had since 127, which, coincidentally, that was a game they won against the Tennessee Titans, also in 2010, which is an awkward year because the Steelers ended up going to the Super Bowl that year. So their 10 first downs were the fewest they had since 10 against the Ravens, December 29th, 2019. I think we remember that very well. That was we were in the Duck Dynasty back then in 2019. So that was a rough year, and it's like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense, but this was like historically bad, or the Eagles defense is just that good. Okay. That really is it. We were talking about it. I don't think that we blinked at all when saying that. There were a lot of guys, a lot of young players. They got a lot of guys on rookie contracts, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, like all these guys that are like, first, second, third year players. It's just like, holy cow, man. And then you add like with a veteran presence like Darius Slay. And it's just the Eagles defense definitely has to be respected. I mean, the Steelers offense, we still didn't think was top flight. I mean, Russell Wilson came in, he was scoring 28 points per game or so coming into this game, and they get locked down. Are they just that much better, or was this like just kind of one of these instances where the Eagles offense maybe got better, the Steelers just got outplayed on both sides of the ball?
I think you can't underestimate the impact of not having George Pickens. Not having George Pickens just changes the dynamic of the Steelers offense. He is a challenge for defenses, and without him, it's a lot easier for them to game plan. So not having Pickens, I think, is impactful here. It means that it's just different. I mean, the way that one play call, as we talked about, happened to go, the one where there clearly are punches being thrown by both sides, and yet somehow magically the refs are colorblind to the color green and can't tell that there were other punches thrown, and they just screw that all up. Big surprise, but whatever. that takes away an opportunity for 7 there, right? And drops it to 3. You get 7 there, it can change the dynamic of the game. You have Pickens in, who's got the ability to stretch the field. It opens up the underneath routes. It can change the schematic of the game. None of that is to cause detriment to the fact that the Eagles defense right now is probably the best defense in the league, right? That's at least how they're playing, right? They're playing lights out. They have the talent to be the best defense in the league. Doesn't mean the Steelers can't go toe to toe with them any place other than in Philadelphia in Lincoln Financial Field, but they can, especially if they have all their components. The real problem that I see is the Steelers right now they don't have the same depth as a lot of the top tier teams have on the offensive side of the ball. They have one really great wide receiver, but they don't have 2. Mike Williams is not making the kind of impact we hoped he would, and that's always been a cautionary tale from the get-go, right? From the beginning of the season, we're like, who's number 2? Who's number 2? Who's number 2? And while it's been great and Russ has definitely elevated the play of some of the others, they're not. That's just saying what it's saying. Russ has elevated their play, but they are not true number 2s. Even Calvin Austin, they just aren't. And so defenses aren't going to have the same level of respect. So getting Pickens back will help a lot. I think this is just a game that we expected to go almost exactly like it went, right? In fact, one of the articles that I read about the summary of the game said it wasn't as close as the score indicated. And I don't really
disagree with that.
I don't agree with that either. I think they're wrong. I think it actually was closer than the score indicated because it didn't get away from them until late in the second half. And I think there were various opportunities. It really turns on 2 things: the no call of offsetting penalties and Najee's fumble. Those 2 things really turn the tide of this game. And without those 2 things, it doesn't mean the Steelers win, but it's a much tighter matchup.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. There were a couple other calls that just seemed bizarre in this game. You had an unnecessary roughness penalty with Montravius Adams with the long snapper and and all this safety stuff, and Dean Blandino or whoever's on the call for Fox trying to say, well, that's the right call. He did not go at are you watching the same game? He did not go at the long snapper. He very clearly went at the interior lineman.
And he's then blocked into the long snapper. I think it's a loophole in the rule. You're not supposed to hit that gap. Is the real emphasis of the rule. If he's on the outside shoulder of that other player, he never goes over there. I agree. It's nonsensical in my mind. He doesn't cover the long snapper. He doesn't directly impact the long snapper in the head, but he does get him in the shoulder. Why? Because he's blocked into him. Technically, the letter of the law, it's the violation.
Then how is that an onus on the player? Like you could only judge what happened, but it seems like somebody just wasn't. They were asleep at the wheel several times, because then you had Connor Hayward get punched in the face. And
that never gets called.
Oh yeah, that was after the kick. That just tacks on and only ends up being a 3-yard penalty instead of giving the Steelers the ball back, first down and an extra 15 yards. That would have put them on the Eagles 31 at that point. And that's the aftermath of which they don't get the ball back after that. They never see the ball back after that. And instead, they may have had an opportunity either there or the Najee fumble is it's a 14-point swing, because they're only down 7. He doesn't fumble there, and it hits him right in the breadbasket, right in between the twos, right? If he doesn't drop the ball there, which is, he had nearly 300 carries, 200 some or whatever they said it was, without a fumble, it's very unlikely for that to happen. Like you said, it's a curse being in Philadelphia. They might get in there. And I say might because Philadelphia's defense is playing very, very good. But they have some momentum. It's third quarter. You tie the game. It changes what Philadelphia does, too. And then that also helps the Steelers' defense. And after the fumble, they get the ball back the one time, and then that's it. And then it's ball game. The Eagles have the ball. What is it? Like, there was 10:29 when the Eagles get the ball, and they just could not stop Philadelphia to save their lives on anything. I've never seen a drive go 21 plays 99 yards like it did at the end there. And then the previous drives, that second half, 13 plays, 52 yards and a field goal, 13 plays, 74 yards and a touchdown, 21 plays, 99 yards. There were, here we go, Brian, it's time. It's time, my friend. I had the candy canes
for our graphics. Yes, it's time for our good graphics that are just equal. These are equal to that stupid patch.
So you've got 13, and 13 is 26. Carry the thingamajig, put this thing over here with 21, 47 plays. That's more than what the Steelers ran the entire game on offense, and the Eagles ran that in 2 quarters. Then you wonder why the defense is tired. Now
was gassed.
Yeah. You lose Dante Jackson during this game. You didn't have Deshaun Elliott during this game. I think there's impacts there. You didn't have Larry Ogunjobi in this game. That's an impact there. TJ Watt goes down, and everyone has a very collective gasp. So it's just like the Steelers are like 1-9, 1-10 without TJ Watt. And you're just like, oh no, this is like the worst case scenario. So hopefully he's okay. I think there was calculated risk on who to sit in this game and how much this game actually meant overall in the grand scheme of things. You're not going to trot Pickens out there and make things worse, not have him for the Ravens game. Same for Ogunjobi, same for Elliott. And TJ, if he could have went back out there, hey dude, we're down 2 scores. Go find a warm seat on the bench. And hopefully, Tomlin is ready for all hands on deck, according to his press conference. Anybody that's healthy, I even think if they're questionable, this is going to be the AFC North championship essentially here. They've got to have this one and put this separation if they have, because then after that, Brian, even if they lose to the Chiefs or the Bengals, they have head to head, they sweep the Ravens, but they got to go into a hostile environment in order to do so.
Yeah, this isn't like there is, as we've said before, the Ravens are a different breed, right? They've had problems beating the Steelers now. They haven't beaten us in forever. And, it's been a cool minute since the last time we lost to the Ravens. But here's the thing. This is still a very good team, right? When the Steelers are not at full capacity, when things are not going their way, they can lose this game for sure. It could even turn into a rout. For sure could. Probably it's not going to, right? The hope is that it goes the way all the other games go. But the Ravens defense is not the Eagles defense. They have been playing better. Give them credit for that, but they are not the Eagles defense. And if we have Pickens back, if we have some more components, I think Russ can go ahead and can cook just fine against the Ravens defense and put up enough points that we walk out of there AFC North champions.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there as well. The way I think they need to attack the Ravens is probably, I'm trying to give this some actual thought.
Why do that now? We never do that.
Well, I think
we're off the cuff, man. Don't think. Thinking is bad.
Well, okay. So Steelers haven't had a problem running the football until this game against the Eagles. I think that gives a blueprint maybe for the Ravens. But if you have Pickens back, you're absolutely right. I do think that there's a big difference with having Russell Wilson as quarterback too. They've been averaging close to 100 yards or more passing per game than when Justin Fields was out there, which, by the way, Justin Fields getting knocked out too. There's some people that were, whining and complaining, oh, put Fields out there. It would have been different. Well, number one, he was ruled out of the game. He couldn't come back. Number two, I don't think you do anything much different against that Eagles front, the whole defense. I mean, that whole defense is loaded. And you've got guys playing like, I know they say, well, Dean's become a star and this and that. And I think we kind of expect him. He kind of slipped in the draft where he wasn't supposed to, kind of like a Peyton Wilson, right? So I don't necessarily put any credence into saying stuff like that, somebody playing above the line. But for the talking heads like Tom Brady, who we get again on Saturday on Fox. Yeah, so that game, just for a programming note,
he's so bad.
It's a national game.
He's just so bad.
He is very bad. He got a little better as the game went on, just like here or there, but he's so monotone, robotic. Like he has the personality of like, my wooden shelves back here.
I'm convinced he is a robot. I think he's an android.
He very well could be.
I think I think all of his kids are artificial insemination, and he's an android. That's what I think. He's a Ken doll.
He does. He does look very. He does. You know, I'm not gonna lie. He does look like he's like just fake, like he's like AI or something on the screen. It's funny, but yeah.
There's too many instances. There's too many memes going around of how Tom Brady just doesn't know how to react like a normal human being.
Well, I mean, part of that is he played football for about 80 years, so
yes, that's
he
true.
doesn't know anything. But you would think even on the field, wait do you see the Hard Knocks with Russell Wilson? Russ seems like really like such a great dude. During that where that fight breaks out, he goes after Broderick Jones. He goes, you know, like no. He's like, we need you. He's like, use your head, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? We need you, and it was that was some pretty cool stuff that they had mic'd up. And I'm just waiting. I'm like. There's got to be some stamp of approval from the NFL teams because there's got to be something. I guarantee you, I was lip reading Mike Tomlin. They didn't catch everything he said in that conversation. He was not thrilled. But okay, ahead to the Baltimore Ravens and lessons learned. And I was already talking about you got to get Jaylen Warren is a guy that's hard to tackle. Najee Harris, also a guy that's kind of hard to tackle in space. The running game's got to be focal point. You got to get the running game going. They were not able to do this when they were also trailing the Eagles the entire game. They almost got it going, and then Najee fumbled, unfortunately. You got to get these guys used in the pass game, too. I think it worked against the Bengals. I know the Bengals defense is soft. I know you got to worry about Roquan and some guys like that, but when you have Freiermuth's been holding up his part of the deal, leads the team in receiving touchdowns. I think he has 4 of them from Russ. We were worried about that a little bit, whether Russ would use or find the tight end. Operating out of the slot, Russ likes his guys there. His slot receivers, I mean, Tyler Lockett feasted for years. You had smaller receivers like a Doug Baldwin. I think Calvin Austin could be more involved in this game too. That flea flicker, that was a hell of a play. It was momentum. That was momentum. It's things you got to do in order to get somebody free and open some of these things up. I truly think, like you said, that headline was wrong. This game was a lot closer because we mentioned these things. We mentioned if maybe Connor Hayward, they call that penalty and it's a 1st and 10 and they got the ball like down at the 31 or whatever I said earlier. That's a game changer. If Najee doesn't fumble, that's a game changer. And you can look at
tripping against Zach Frazier.
That was pretty bad too. I'm like,
I mean, it's technically tripping because he tripped the guy, but I don't know that it was intentional.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, you know, if you're flopping around on the ground and your legs go in a direction, you could trip somebody. It doesn't mean you didn't do it intentionally. I don't know. I thought that was a weak call, but
intent, there's semantics with intent. Intent means you're a mind reader and you know that, Brian, you intentionally did that, but is it deliberate? Now, deliberate's a whole other thing. It means what you saw is what happened. Zach Frazier said, I'm not going to get beat, and he kung fu ninja kicks the dude and takes him to the ground. Is that what happened? Was it deliberate? No, I don't think it was deliberate. Those offsetting penalties, instead of settling for a field goal, maybe you're going into halftime tied to begin with. Changes just the whole scope of it. And like we said, not having some players, I'm beat up over the fact that they couldn't stop anybody and get like Tomlin didn't accept that one penalty and it was like 2nd and 20 or whatever and just I forget if it was Brown or Smith, whoever caught that ball.
I would have gone 1st and 30. I would have gone first and 30.
I mean, that was bad. The missed tackles.
I get it. Don't get me wrong. I can understand why you might think 2nd and 20 is good enough. I would have gone 1st and 30.
And
because I think it defeats the offense. They just give up. They're like, we're not going to get 1st and 30. Forget it. We'll run a couple plays, see if we get something. Doesn't mean they won't get it, but that's what I would have done.
This isn't the first time Tomlin's done this year either and have it bite him. The 3rd down defense sometimes, or, you know, limiting in these like long situations has been tough. And I don't know if that's a product of having somebody like James Pierre or DeMonte Casey or somebody like that on the field. And I noticed at times too, the Eagles most certainly looked for 50, Landon Roberts, and then were throwing the ball, especially early in the game. They played Roberts a bit more. When Peyton Wilson was out there, there were opportunities and they just couldn't get off the field. That does lie on the defense, unfortunately. We're looking at the 3rd highest scoring offense in the NFL with 29.9, 30 points per game, Baltimore Ravens. Steelers still only giving up 18.9. Ravens giving up 23.7. Steelers now in the top 10 with 24 points per game. The Steelers are first overall in the National Football League with a plus 18 takeaway differential. The Ravens are only plus 2. They're in the middle of the pack. Passing wise and rushing wise, the Ravens are third in passing yards, 245 average per game, and 178 rushing is second in the league. Steelers are 24th in passing, 198 and 126th, also 10th overall as running. Defensively, the Ravens are still last or next to last, 258 in pass defense. We think that's a lot of a product of although the opponents getting behind in games, they're first against the run with 80. So we still think that when we saw the last time these teams got together and that kind of metric didn't really fit, that's why. I think that'll be thrown out the window. I think that the Steelers will try and run the ball, and I think they can be effective in running the ball against Baltimore. I don't think that the players that they have, the talent that they have up front, I think this is just a product of teams get behind. Like the Giants, what are they going to do? They're going to have to try and throw the ball or whatever. They throw the ball more than what they're going to run, right? Defensively, the Steelers are sliding. They gave up 222 passing. A lot of that has to do with these games. They've lost like 4 of the 6 games where they give up 20 or more points, which is a concern. And then they've also given up with the Eagles and the Bengals and then the Cowboys. Those are the top 3 games where they've given up the most pass yards. Otherwise, they've been like very solid against the pass. But you look and see who those quarterbacks are in those games, right? You had Dak Prescott, you had Jalen Hurts with those and great wide receivers too. Now, Cowboys, you can make your arguments, CeeDee Lamb and whatnot too. But, Joe Burrow has T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. He's a passing offense. The Eagles were a passing offense. They have Hurts, they have Devontae Smith, they have A.J. Brown. Those are all dudes. So Steelers got to button up a little bit and not allow the Ravens, all of this leeway. And where I was looking at was they've only given up over 300 yards passing in a game to one team all season. That was the Cowboys. 282 to the Bengals, 270 to the Eagles. Believe it or not, 269 to the Jets. So for the most part, they don't give up a whole lot. They only gave up 205 in the previous encounter and 124 rushing yards, 329 total yards defensively against the Ravens, which is fewer than they gave up against the Colts, the Bengals, even the Giants. So the Steelers defense is capable of putting the clamps down. They're built to beat the Baltimore Ravens. The biggest question is how healthy, hopefully, this defense has everybody. You have George Pickens back on offense. You have a full complement of players so they can go toe-to-toe because the Ravens are still a team many are considering to be a Super Bowl contender.
Absolutely. If Dante Jackson can't go, if that back injury prevents him from going, and it's Pierre, they're going to pick on Pierre. They're going to have to find a way to help him. Lamar is going to find him and pick on him. I don't think they're going to attack Joey Porter, even though they might just because of the whole penalty thing. But the Ravens game is one of those games where those penalties may not get called, right? It's a physical game. It's expected to be a physical game. They're going to let them play physically. But we'll see. We'll see. I think they are at risk if they are not healthy. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and taking a look at the injury report for this game, it's a laundry list. It's a short week. Steelers right back in the lab Tuesday with the early statuses that we have. All of these did not participate other than Larry Ogunjobi was limited with that groin, so he did return. Cam Hayward was a resting veteran along with Patrick Queen, but you've got Justin Fields with the abdominal, George Pickens still with the hamstring, as same with Deshaun Elliott, Dante Jackson with the back, and TJ Watt with the ankle. So you're hoping for participation from these guys, at least in a limited capacity on Wednesday or Thursday. Then they're going to travel with the team and I guess be a game time decision because they're going to need them. I think Tomlin will pull the trigger. This game matters that much if you want that home playoff game. That's what it really matters. I think the first round bye is kind of out the window. Buffalo, man, that Buffalo-Detroit game, man. Shoo. And Josh Allen, it's just like you don't want to have to go to Buffalo again to play a playoff game as a wild card team. You do not want that to happen. Not that I think the Steelers will be if Buffalo doesn't get the bye, well, it's going to be one of two teams that the bottom seed face. It's going to be Buffalo or Kansas City, right? And if Kansas City holds on for whatever reason, if the Steelers end up, beating the Ravens and beating the Chiefs, and then there's some stuff that happens there, and Buffalo ends up tied, and Buffalo gets it. But I don't think the Steelers will be the 7th seed. I think they would be the 5th seed if something happens with them and the Ravens. I don't think anyone's going to leapfrog them in that position, but you won't have a home playoff game, and they really haven't had one in front of, a full stadium of fans. Going back to that Jaguars loss in 2017, it's so hard to believe. We were living high off the hog with playoff games and multiple playoff games every year. Some people will say, well, that's the reason you fire Mike Tomlin. And it's like, well, you look at the lean years that they had. I mean, the one game didn't have fans with COVID, you had Mason Rudolph duck year, and then they go to Kansas City and they go to Buffalo. I mean, those are tough places to play. Some of these players now have that experience if they need to. You just don't want that to be your wild card game,
Exactly. The home playoff game is going to be, it's just important. They need this win for the division. If they win this game, I think they're pretty much set. I mean, they can't, I don't know for sure if they can lose both of the last 2 games, but if they win this game, I think it probably, that and a couple other things, I think eliminates Cincinnati. And so maybe they got nothing to play for and they're sitting people at the end of the year. Who knows?
Yeah, Cincinnati's a curious case of they can't lose any games. They really feel like they've got something going. They got the 2-game win streak. The Ravens,
but it's not just they can't lose, right? Other teams have to lose.
Oh
too.
Yeah, and it was like Miami and Indianapolis or something too, which did happen, and that's the reason the Steelers still clinched the playoff berth. So the other reason I'm not so beat up about this game, like when I watched it, I was just kind of like, okay, that's what happened. The Eagles are a fantastic team. The Eagles are like a very maybe even more favorable, in my opinion, than even the Kansas City Chiefs, because I think they will win the NFC. They still got to contend with the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions, like. They scared me, but David Montgomery went down. They're without Aiden Hutchinson, and Dan Campbell's just he's crazy. Like that guy can make a crazy decision that's going to cost his team. So I like those are the 2 front runners, right? I'm not as beat up because it's an NFC game. So in the AFC standings and everything else, the Steelers, as long as they take care of business these final games here, they should be in a good spot. Hopefully this game they could get the home playoff game. On the Ravens side of the injuries, Brian, we don't have a whole lot right now that's come up as, like, hey, there's a guy that they can't do without. Nelson Aguilar in the concussion protocol, Jalen Armour-Davis, hamstring corner. He's a DMP, both of those guys. Edison Isaac, hamstring limited. Deontay Johnson, pretty much benched and probably
indefinitely.
Yeah, going to be cut from that team and maybe never play in the NFL after this. Kane with the hamstring limited. TJ Ciampa, he's a backup corner. He's a full participant with the ankle injury. And then Ardarius Washington, safety, limited with the ankle. So they don't have anybody that's like, other than Aguilar, you might consider like a full-time starter.
I won't miss Nelson Aguilar because he seems to make catches that annoy me when he's playing us. So
that happens with a lot of dudes, man. I'm like, really? Like it does. It gets to you. Like I never thought that. Like I did think that though. There was like the one play and likewise Pat Freiermuth caught one like this too, right? Where he holds on to the football, clutch hands. But I think it was AJ Brown, and it was just like it was extended, and it was Jackson or Casey or somebody that was in a position to potentially make a play, and then they didn't make that play. And it's like when everything gets extended like it does. They blitzed, but they didn't blitz a whole lot against the Eagles, and then that kind of went away because after so long, it's like you're chasing people around the field, and you only have so many substitutes to go around. Defense was gassed, and you're just hoping that that TJ ends up being healthy for this one. He's the big one because
he's the catalyst.
Yeah. I know Herbig can add to the pass rush. I know Highsmith can, but TJ is a game changer. 6 forced fumbles. Vegas had him as the odds-on leader so far for Defensive Player of the Year. They probably won't give it to him. They'll give it to somebody else. I saw one of the
anybody other than him.
One of the corners or somebody. They'll figure it out.
Somebody else that they've got a boner over.
That's the way it always seems to work, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ravens, let's just run through real quick offensively. You've got their offensive line. it's going to be a tale of in the trenches once again, right? Tyler Linderbaum, he's flanked by Daniel Falele, Patrick McCarry with your tackles, Roger Rosengarten and Ronnie Stanley, who can be had. That's why you need TJ Watt. They'll be trying to throw some of these tight ends like Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. They are both threats in the pass game too. Andrews, it's still a slow season. Tomlin acknowledged him. I don't know that he's all the way there, but his contributions here or there, you know what I mean? It's like Pat Freiermuth was kind of not around the first half of the season with Justin Fields as well, right? So obviously Lamar Jackson, Patrick Ricard to fullback with Derrick Henry, and then your wide receivers Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers. Aguilar is that extra guy that comes in. You also have, they traded for Deontay Johnson because, you know, rookie like Devontae Walker still hasn't like really stood up, and you don't necessarily get the biggest of production from guys like Bateman and Aguilar to begin with. It's Zay Flowers and the tight ends in that pass game, but you have to be able to slow down or stop Derrick Henry. They were able to do minimize a lot of that. He still scored in the last game, but it's like, that's Derrick Henry. That's what's going to happen. You can't have him go for like 200 yards. You can't have Lamar Jackson fly around the field like he does. This is only going to be the second time Lamar Jackson plays in front of the home crowd against the Steelers, which seems unlikely, but these teams always have backup quarterbacks in because everybody else is like, oh, well, the Steelers just never play them with Lamar Jackson. You're right. They play him with Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky or Mason Rudolph or somebody like that. So that has also been the story over the last several seasons. Defensively, on that defensive line, Travis Jones flanked with Broderick Washington, Nnamdi Madubuike, Michael Pierce and Brent Urban in that rotation. You got Odafe Owe, David Ajabo, they're out there as well. The linebackers, Roquan Smith, Trenton Simpson, Kyle Van Noy, and in the secondary, Brandon Stevens, Marlon Humphrey, as was acknowledged by Mike Tomlin in the press conference. Marcus Williams has kind of been put on the side for Ardarius Washington, who's stepped in because they had problems in his secondary. Stevens has been kind of an up and down kind of guy. They traded for Tre'Davious White in order to try and the same thing the Steelers were doing with the receivers with Mike Williams, and I'm not sure that that's really done anything yet, but it's still somebody to acknowledge, because if that's somebody you get on the field and it's like one of your reserves, it's probably still, you put him on somebody like, I don't know, Calvin Austin's fast, but you could definitely cover Van Jefferson. You know what I mean? So there's got to be something there. George Pickens has been a Raven killer. He was even with Kenny Pickett. He's been able to beat Marlon Humphrey. It reminds me of the old Antonio Brown versus Joe Hayden matchup when it was Steelers versus Browns. You know, Hayden's a great player. Marlon Humphrey's a great player, but the wide receivers, they know where they're going. They know where the routes are running. When you have a veteran quarterback that can deliver them the ball, you've got to get a couple of those big plays from Russell Wilson. You got to run the football. I think the Steelers need to run the ball more than they pass it in this game. They can't get behind. They have to hold down Derrick Henry and pressure Lamar Jackson. Don't let him do all of this hocus pocus stuff that he does, because when he's pressured, he can and will make mistakes.
Absolutely. Agree with you 100%. Do we have a map yet?
There's no map for this one.
Oh, there is no map because everybody gets it because it's on. It's a Saturday. It's everybody gets it.
We might as well show last week's map. Maybe those couple cities are the only ones that
I want some
get
city that doesn't get it. I just wanted a map that was all red.
Yeah, it would have been, as I stutter and trip over my words. What week are we in? 16? Yeah, I've got it there on the graphic, right? But there's no graphic for this. Because it's just the I could show you somebody else's if that makes you feel any better.
Sure, show me somebody else's map.
Let's see what we have.
Where's our graphic though? We need maps.
Yeah, actually, the graphic I was going to show you was Maps with Brian. I was just going to show you that one again.
There you go. It's just as good. It's equally as poor or good depending on your take.
Oh my goodness! I think we're gonna make a special holiday logo for Steel City Underground, and we're gonna do that. I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
No, I was gonna show you I'll just show you last week's. There you go. Except the other two colors that are barely there, and all
are all red.
Yeah, it's all red. I'm like, it's the entire country, so just to joke around. The only bad part is
we should just show that again and see if we have anybody in Atlanta or Florida that's watching the show, and then go, I don't know what you're going to watch because it's not the Steelers game and it's the only game on, so you're just going to, they're going to put on a replay of some other game, but we don't know what it is. See if anybody believes us.
If I have an opportunity, I'll ask the gentleman that sits in front of me. He travels from Atlanta, has season tickets sitting in front of me. He comes to most of the home games via Atlanta, which
Oh
it's
wow,
like, yeah, that's a trip and a half.
that's worse than me.
I know, worse to me too. So, well, buddy, that'll do it for us for today, folks. Thanks for joining us for a little bit of a bonus coverage. We will be back after this one. Either, I don't know, Sunday there's games to watch, so we might have to wait and see what else ends up going on, because you've got some other AFC North matchups. You've got the Browns and the Bengals, and you're going to keep your eye on that. That one's in Cincinnati, and I could show you the map for that, but it's like just a little chunk of the whole
Of Ohio.
Yeah, it's all of Ohio, because it's the stupid thing,
Right.
like it was with the Eagles, Battle of Pennsylvania, Battle of Ohio. They played like twice a year, and it's like, is this really something to build up? And I'll leave the spoilers out from Hard Knocks, because apparently it is. There's your Cincinnati and Cleveland coverage, just so you.
Well, look,
Brian,
there's that little teeny section of Ohio that's green. So there's a tiny section of Ohio that doesn't care about either the Bengals or Cleveland.
It actually notches in from Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yeah.
So that's very weird. And you've got ones that are actually grayed out. It's home teams enforcing a blackout. And if you see this is different, man. It gets all the way up like into Chicago here. Chicago and Carolina have blackouts. No game in that early CBS window. Ooh, man. Yeah, I don't know that I've seen a blackout enforced in ever. Like, I mean, I'm really struggling to think about it. Like, I don't know. That's news
Wonder if
to
they
me.
get around it with the direct TV stuff, the YouTube thing, and get around it.
That's a great question. A lot of times that was like even still geo restricted on the Sunday ticket, where it would tell you watch this game on your local network. And in Chicago, who's hosting the Detroit Lions, that's wild, dude. I can't think of the last time. Somebody will probably be like, well, it's just happened, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I really can't think about it. And then in the Panthers market, you've got the same thing. You've got the 7-7 Cardinals traveling to Charlotte for the 3-11 Panthers. And unless you go to the game, like, you're in your own local market and you're not going to be able to watch your team, but that might be a blessing if you're a Bears or a Panthers fan. And just one other thing, saw it twice last week again, Brian. Players that do the old Leon let's drop the football before we're across the goal line.
Oh my gosh!
Happened in Cincinnati, happened in Indianapolis. Like, do you think these guys would actually watch? Are they not aware? Like, do they not know? Like, that'd be the number one thing, man. It's like, especially when you're trying to get the nose of the ball over the goal line, you're like in brotherly shove situations, teams like that. I don't know. That blows my mind. But that's my last 2 cents. And I gave you a map, so I hope you're happy.
I am happy. I'm always happy when I get to see maps that don't make any sense to me.
Yeah, but you can watch that game for those of our viewers and listeners. Philadelphia or Pittsburgh markets, all of West Virginia, parts of Northern Virginia, Kentucky, and then almost all of Ohio, with the exception of whoever gets the Fort Wayne stations. You're gonna get to watch the Browns and Bengals, and that may be for better or worse. You may just want to wrap Christmas gifts at that point, but that'll do it for us, folks. Thanks for joining us once again. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. My name's Joe, and his name is Brian. We'll be back to you early next week before Christmas to wish everyone a happy holidays, but be safe out there. There's still a lot of crazy people driving around, getting their last minute shopping in. So as we always close this show out in saying and doing, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.